Order. I will call Sarah Olney to move the motion and then call the Minister to respond. Can I remind other members that they may only make a speech in this debate with prior permission from the member in charge of the debate and the Minister. And as I'm sure the Honourable Lady knows, there will not be an opportunity for her to wind up the debate, as is the convention in these shorter debates. I call Sarah Olney to move the motion.
Thank you very much, Sir Jeremy. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. Venture capital in the United Kingdom is a unique and valuable industry that supports so many smaller, innovating companies with high growth potential. Our VC market accounted for £8 billion worth of investment in 2023. It's the largest VC market in the world after the US and China, and the largest in Europe by a considerable margin. As eloquently put by the CEO of the UK's trade body for venture capital, the BVCA, venture investment helps turn ideas, research and development into thriving businesses, generating economic growth, stimulating innovation and creating jobs and opportunities across all nations and regions in the UK. However, whilst our VC market is growing and is strong, it is also highly inequitable for ethnic minorities, for women and for many other communities where there is either insufficient data or insufficient time to discuss today. Our system of venture capital does not work. Businesses with founders from these communities receive a disproportionately lower percentage of VC deals and a disproportionately lower percentage of total VC funding. With its priority of growth, the government must do more to ensure that venture capital market in the UK is inclusive and accessible. Happy to give way.
So, Jeremy, can I commend the Honourable Lady for bringing this forward? In Northern Ireland, we have what's referred to as the Minorities Recognition Awards, launched the Innovators Grant Competition for Ethnic Minorities in Northern Ireland. It has been a successful collaboration which offers entrepreneurial individuals from ethnic minority backgrounds who are resident in Northern Ireland and have a novel business idea a choice to apply for a grant of some £10,000 to further develop their ideas. But to make it go further and make it work better, does the Honourable Lady agree that the devolved institutions could benefit from further funding for the likes of these grants to potentially bridge funding gaps, ensure people from all backgrounds can have the opportunity to succeed, which I believe many of those people have that ability?
Sarah Olney.
I thank the honourable gentleman for his intervention, and I entirely agree that we need to do more to bridge that gap. And I'm delighted to hear about some of the efforts already being made in Northern Ireland towards that goal. In 2022, 10% of first-time equity deals went to all ethnic minority teams, with 19% of total investment value. However, whilst I welcome the broadly representative nature of these first-time equity deals, these are also unequally distributed within ethnic minority communities, with only 0.24% of venture capital funding between 2009 and 2019 going to black founders. On a similar note, all white teams accessed a mean investment of £224,000, whereas teams with one or more ethnic minority founders received an average of £49,000, and all ethnic minority teams received an average of £94,000, less than half of all white teams. I'm proud to be a member and the former chair of the APPG for Ethnic Minority Business Owners, which has not only supported ethnic minority business owners but also considered the intersection of diverse characteristics, including gender and ethnicity, on access to finance, which I will come on to later. And I'm proud to welcome our... Oh, she should be here, Diana Crouch. She was the... Oh, there you are. Diana Crouch. She was the secretariat for that APPG and does amazing work on behalf of ethnic minority founders. I'm also pleased to note the recent successes in the financial industry. In particular, I welcome the work of the Lending Standards Board on creating their Access to Financial Services for Ethnic Minority-Led Businesses Code. Whilst this was an important and significant step towards greater equality, the Lending Standards Board does not directly cover venture capital, instead covering other financial instruments for investment. Therefore, with the LSB acting as living proof that positive change can happen, and the statistics I have mentioned, it's time for the government to step up and ensure that success is replicated in venture capital and that we can tackle the inequality within VC. Lack of equality for venture capital investments is not only an issue in relation to ethnic minority communities. Female founders are also far less likely to secure this kind of investment. In 2022, a report by the British Business Bank found that only 13% of first-time equity deals went to all-female founder teams, with 6% of total investment value, with no statistically significant improvement on this in the past decade. This data is even more worrying when looking at women from ethnic minorities, where only 0.02% of the total amount invested through VC went to black women entrepreneurs. And finally, one of the most damning statistics of the inequality within the venture capital system, and outlined in a 2023 British Business Bank report, only 3% of individuals in senior investment and non-investment positions were women from ethnic minority backgrounds. And concerningly, 0 black women were found in positions of seniority in VC firms at the time of the study. I'm sure many of us are aware of this as an issue affecting founders and business owners across the country. However, this inequality was highlighted to me by my constituent in Richmond Park, who's the founder of Parley Training, a business that has supported organisations including the Northern Irish and Scottish devolved governments, NATO, and even parliamentary offices in this very House. In the years leading up to and including 2024, they had employed 170 people and at its peak generated £250,000 in turnover. Despite this strong performance over many years, my constituent, a woman from an ethnic minority community, was recently denied investment from the Greater London Investment Fund. In her correspondence with the fund manager, she was told the fund would not be viable for someone like her because she would be viewed as a risk. Those who access the funds usually come from wealthy backgrounds, and the only funds available to female-led businesses in London usually take the guise of a grant, and that my constituent should try and find a grant that suited her business or start a GoFundMe. Clearly something has gone wrong. Now, of course, a long discourse on the issue at hand can only go so far. What entrepreneurs from affected communities need is for the government to take meaningful action in ensuring that the UK's venture capital industry is accessible and inclusive. The first thing we need is greater transparency in the reporting and recording of data, particularly for venture capital deals, which has been championed by many leading voices in the venture capital sector and by the APPG for ethnic minority business owners. Laddie Greenstreet, CEO of Diversity VC, for instance, has said that there is a significant amount of power in reporting. Simply measuring the problem creates momentum for change. Whilst a July 2023 British Business Bank report outlined venture capital firms participating in industry-wide surveys and making D&I data on their investments public as an effective action to improve diversity. Furthermore, a November 2023 report by the British Business Bank, in collaboration with other leading trade bodies, outlined the scarcity of comprehensive data on ethnic minorities, particularly at the intersection of gender and ethnicity. One measure that I hope the government will consider is integrating reporting of diversity data within venture capital tax reliefs. As recommended by the Treasury Select Committee's 2023 report, provision of diversity statistics as a requirement for eligibility to receive the Enterprise Investment Scheme or the Seed Enterprise Investment Scheme tax reliefs, and also the Venture Capital Trust tax reliefs, may be an effective way to improve reporting statistics and push companies to act on this important issue. Secondly, I urge the government to take more robust action to support women in finance and venture capital, including through the Treasury's Women in Finance Charter and the British Business Bank's Investing in Women Code. Despite their success, these schemes continue to be voluntary initiatives with relatively low levels of uptake, meaning that their progress in improving diversity in venture capital is too slow and restrictive. For instance, the Women in Finance Charter is currently signed by 400 companies covering 1.3 million employees, in comparison to over 80,000 companies in the UK's financial services industry, covering 2.5 million employees. On the other hand, signatories to the British Business Bank's Investing in Women Code accounted for 47% of venture capital deals, meaning that over half of VC deals would not fall under this code. Therefore, and echoing calls made by the Treasury Select Committee in 2023, I wonder whether the government would consider mandating the Treasury and the British Business Bank to adopt a comply or explain policy with regards to both the WFC and the IWC. I should note that the Treasury Committee also outlined that should diversity statistics and reporting not improve quickly enough, it would be wise to instead consider calling for compulsory membership. With these changes, the government can strengthen existing processes to ensure that women are not negatively impacted. Another key call that has been made from groups including the British Business Bank was surrounding diversity at the top, referring to the lack of diversity in key bodies, including investment committees, who often have ultimate decision-making on where capital is allocated. Too often, investment committees are made up of members with similar characteristics and backgrounds, leading to groupthink and preservation of the status quo, a status quo that we know is inequitable. In its July 2023 report, the British Business Bank recommended pushes for greater diversity in these leading committees as a crucial opportunity for greater accessibility and inclusion, with a correlation between diverse investing groups and diverse investment recipients. As recommended by the APPG for ethnic minority business owners, I wonder whether the Minister would consider requiring VC firms to adopt and implement a strategic investment inclusion framework, modelled after the Lending Standard Board framework, to dismantle structural barriers. In conclusion, the Government has said that its priority in this Parliament is growth. But what good is growth if it's not accessible to all of our communities? And we are cutting ourselves off from a key source of that growth if we continue to enable barriers to accessing investment for all of the excluded groups that I have referred to in my speech. The Government is committed to supporting businesses. But what good is that commitment if a number of businesses are excluded, whether deliberately or not, from finance and investment? Our venture capital system continues to be unrepresentative of our communities, and the Government must do better to tackle this issue. Government has long championed itself as a government of change, but for many entrepreneurs looking for venture capital, they have so far seen more of the same from this government. And I hope that the Minister has heard the points raised in this debate and takes meaningful steps to resolve the injustice we see in our venture capital industry, which hinders businesses, damages growth, and continues a legacy of inequality. Thank you, Sir Jeremy.
Thank you. And the question is that this House has considered access to venture capital for people from ethnic minority and other underrepresented backgrounds. I call the Minister, Gareth Thomas.
Thank you, Sir Jeremy. And may I begin in the usual way by congratulating the Honourable Lady for Richmond Park on securing this debate. And if I may, let me also take the opportunity to acknowledge the contribution of the honourable gentleman who seems to represent the whole of Northern Ireland in Westminster Hall for his contribution too. The honourable lady also rightly referenced the impressive work of Diana Crouch as the Secretariat for the All-Party Group for Ethnic Minority Business Owners. And I am grateful to her as well for the challenge that she poses to government on this issue. And perhaps unusually for a minister, let me say at this point, I hope she will continue to challenge us in this space going forward, because she is absolutely right to say that whilst there has been some progress, there is an awful lot more that we need to do. Let me also say at the outset that it was a pleasure to join her and other members of the APPG for Ethnic Minority Business Owners at the King's Award for Enterprise reception in April, recognising current holders of the King's Award and encouraging more ethnic minority business owners to apply. And I just gently say in passing that there were some really inspiring stories from some of the ethnic minority business owners there who had succeeded in winning the King's Award. And I really welcome the work of the APPG in encouraging other ethnic minority-run business owners to think about putting in for the award. We don't do enough, I think, in this country to encourage and to celebrate entrepreneurship in general, but certainly we don't do enough to encourage entrepreneurship amongst a whole range of underrepresented groups already, be it ethnic minority owners, as she's rightly concentrated on, but also disabled entrepreneurs, women-led businesses, and businesses led by veterans. We know there's more to do in this space, which is one of the reasons why we launched last month a call for evidence on access to finance, to look at a range of issues facing small businesses in their needs for access to finance, and we are considering as part of that the particular challenges for ethnic minority business owners and other groups that I've referenced. Preparing for today's debate, I was struck by the quote from Megan Stevenson-Croyce, who is the joint CEO of Diversity VC, summarising the latest findings from the British Private Equity and Venture Capital Association. She said, progress? Absolutely. Enough? Not even close. And I think that's an excellent summary of the position and reflects the collective sense of urgency right across the VC industry, which I welcome. The BVCA study to which Megan was referring is a good example of the progress that's been made, but it also does, as a result, underline just how far still we have to go. This 2025 report on diversity in UK private equity and venture capital covers 370 firms and over 14,000 employees, which is a significant proportion of the industry. It differentiates between roles such as membership of investment committees, which take the key investment decisions, and junior or middle-ranking posts. The Honourable Lady has cited an earlier report in her speech from the British Business Bank. This more recent report focuses on the VC sector directly itself. And if I may, let me, Sir Jeremy, briefly share some of the findings that are perhaps most striking. The encouraging headline is that 18% of investment professionals in the study are from an ethnic minority background, reflecting the UK population as a whole. 1/3 of this cohort are women. This matters because the most significant predictor of backing diverse entrepreneurs is the diversity of the decision makers themselves. One argument that is made is that the 18% overall figure masks a concentration in more junior roles, and there is some truth in that criticism. It does take time to progress to a decision-making position on the investment committee, so one would hope and expect that this disparity lessens as numbers overall improve. It is less pronounced than I expected. The study found that the proportion of ethnic minority staff was 25% in more junior roles, 19% at mid-level, and 16% on the investment committee. The numbers at more senior levels have risen since the last survey, and the trend is going in the right direction. But as she rightly made the point, there is still more progress needed. The final point I found striking was the representation of different ethnic groups. Within that 18% total, 11% were from an Asian background, and just 2% identified as African or Caribbean. For a black entrepreneur seeking investment, that 2% is perhaps the most relevant figure. As I'm sure she and other honourable members would agree, it is the individual experience that matters. Each individual has their own identity, which the term ethnic minority doesn't fully capture. When it comes to levels of venture capital investment itself, I welcome the data she cites on first-time equity deals, with the number of deals for all ethnic minority teams rising from 5% in 2013 to 10% in 2022. But I do share her concerns about the unequal distribution of those deals across different ethnic minority communities. And I certainly agree that there's more to be done, as I've previously alluded to. I was disappointed to hear about the very unfortunate experience of her constituent applying for investment from the Greater London Investment Fund. We've said that progress is happening, but is insufficient. What more then can we do? And the Honourable Lady made a very eloquent case for compulsory data gathering and membership of industry codes. And I will certainly reflect on the arguments that she makes on each of the different points she makes. She will understand that I am sadly not the only minister who has to be sympathetic to her case, and therefore I will certainly draw her attention attention to the points that she's made to other colleagues in government too. Let me take her example of the Investing in Women Code. This is growing year on year. She noted that signatories already accounted for some 47% of venture capital deals. When this year's report is published, she will find that figure has grown further. I've asked my officials to ensure that she gets an advance copy. The power of a voluntary code or a pledge, such as the Women in Finance Charter, is that it signals a shared commitment. Membership of a compulsory scheme perhaps merely signals compliance. For example, the Invest in Women Task Force has successfully raised a £255 million fund from among its members to invest in women entrepreneurs. This private sector-led, government-backed initiative has been effective in part because it is voluntary and because it's not constrained by moving at the speed of the slowest. Sure.
Giving way, I just want to highlight that part of my pitch was that actually what we could do is to, in the first instance, to do more to encourage that voluntary take-up. That anything compulsory would be very much a last resort, but very much the case that we should be encouraging voluntary take-up in the first instance.
Minister.
Absolutely, I'm completely with her on that point, and I recognise that is exactly where government can play a useful role in getting behind industry-led initiatives, and we've certainly been doing that in the context of the Invest in Women Task Force, and are also working with the Lending Standards Board in terms of the code that they're developing too. More broadly, we have the benefit of world-leading experts in the area, in this area, notably Professor Monda Ram, who leads the Centre for Research in Ethnic Minority Entrepreneurship at Aston University. Professor Ram's comprehensive Time to Change report that was prepared in partnership with NatWest was launched in 2022 and sets out the £75 billion potential in unlocking growth of ethnic minority businesses. As a government committed to growth, that is a huge potential win for the UK if we can do more to unlock that potential. My department plans to become an implementation partner for Time to Change, joining organisations such as the West Midlands Combined Authority and Be the Business. We will be working in partnership with Professor Ram's centre to implement the recommendations of the report. And I can tell the Honourable Lady that by happy happenstance, I will be visiting Professor Ram at Aston University later this week, along with my honourable friend. To shift the dial, there has to be a shared drive to improve things. And I genuinely pay tribute to the pressure that the Honourable Lady and the all-party group for ethnic minority business owners is placing on government and on the industry more generally. Honourable members, I hope will see issues of access to finance for underrepresented groups addressed in the government's small business strategy, which we aim to publish later this year. Just yesterday, I had the pleasure of attending the launch of the Lilac Review here in Parliament. Their report considers the experience of disabled entrepreneurs and how investors and the financial services sector can better meet their needs. And I take this opportunity to pay tribute to Michelle Ovens and Small Business Britain for their work in driving that review. It was a genuine pleasure to co-chair the review, and in a similar way, many of the issues that came up around access to finance in that work generate significant questions for government that we will seek to address in the months ahead. There are obviously similarities between our discussion in the House at this point today around the needs of ethnic minority business owners and the needs of disabled entrepreneurs too. For example, we know from research published by the British Business Bank that ethnic minority-led businesses are likely to be using are not as likely to be using external finance as white-led businesses. There is no lack of demand, but what ethnic minority-led businesses are pointing out to us is that when they apply for bank loans, they're significantly more likely to have been turned down, at 49% compared to 32% of white-led businesses. This appears to reflect differences in credit ratings, which suggests that this form of assessment may be insufficient. This view is supported by the fact that community development finance institutions, which are relationship-led, perform much better. In 2023, 24% of CDFI's business lending went to ethnic minority-led businesses, and 41% went to women-led businesses. Similarly, the British Business Bank offers start-up loans for new businesses, of which 21% have gone to ethnic minority entrepreneurs and 40% to women. Information, I think, is a key enabler to closing the finance gap. The British Business Bank research I referenced earlier found that underrepresented entrepreneurs are overall less confident in obtaining information on the different finance types and providers available. And I do take this opportunity to urge all honourable members to point ethnic minority-led businesses in their constituencies to the resources available to them, particularly start-up loans that are run through the British Business Bank, if the business is less than 3 years old, to the CDFI that serves their local area, and more generally to the other range of online information that's available from the British Business Bank. The small business strategy that the government is working on will begin to address this information gap and enhance our business support offer later this year. In the meantime, my department has participated in events like the UK Black Business Show and will join Founderfest 2025 to support entrepreneurs. We will continue collaborating with NatWest, definitely with Professor Mondoram, definitely with the All-Party Group for Ethnic Minority Business Owners, and others, of course, to advance this agenda. In closing, let me return to that summary from Diversity VC. Progress? Absolutely. Enough? Not even close. I accept the challenge that the Honourable Lady poses. I share her sense of urgency on this issue and welcome that constructive challenge of government policies. Through our industrial strategy and our small business strategy, through partnerships with the private sector, we will seek to accelerate progress so that all entrepreneurs have a fair chance to secure the investment they seek to unlock the potential of their businesses.
Grateful to the Minister. The question, therefore, is that this House has considered access to venture capital for people from ethnic minority and other underrepresented backgrounds. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. The contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order. Order. The sitting is suspended until 2:30 this afternoon.